want a good fucking bunch of somebody who doesn't know what they're talking about?
Listen to Pat.
Hey. So, Wooly.
Hey.
My statements on Superman have been well known and documented that I don't like Superman.
Okay.
Have they been reinforced?
Before you go anywhere, just pause.
Before I go anywhere.
2 questions.
What's the question?
Did you read All-Star Superman?
He did.
Is that what this is about?
Yes.
Okay.
What's question 2?
2, did you read it leaning back going, all right, impress me? Or did you read it going, comic book?
No. Hold on. Man, Liam just doesn't...
Just to know. Just to frame where you're coming from.
I had a whole setup here. I had a whole fucking setup here. My thoughts on Superman are known. I think he's boring. I hate him.
Okay.
Right? And I don't know pretty much anything about Superman's world or anything like that isn't Batman or...
You know a lot about Bizarro.
Yeah, sure, and Crypto the Superdog and shit like that. So, last week... we had a discussion about how I was hating on DC or whatever. It's like, what do you want? What do you guys want from me? What do you want? Do you want me to read the things that everyone tells me to read, and then for me to not like them? Will that make you happy? And then a little bit of I don't know what tipped me off, but there was some comment somewhere that was like, "Fuck it, fine."
It was a conversation with a Twitter guy.
Everyone tells me to fucking read All-Star Superman. Fine. Fuck you, I'm gonna read All-Star Superman.
That attitude already makes me go,
oh!
But
what?
No, it's fine, it's continued.
Is that not good enough for you either?
That's totally okay. That's totally okay.
I went and I read it all in like that because it's not long.
No.
I sat down and I read it like that, no problem.
I'm sitting easy.
And All-Star Superman is a pretty fun Superman story that I enjoyed the read.
Yay!
It's super weird, and that's where what I want out of this is just the ultimate in
I know it's getting to a place.
super weird. And what I mentioned last week about the one panel I've ever seen that makes me like Superman.
I can't hear Pa's heartbeat.
Yeah, and he's I can save him. I can save everyone.
Yeah,
that's the one time that Superman, from all the stuff I've seen, acts like an actual goddamn human being. And then, not like a godlike Christ figure.
And then a few pages later, when the bandages come off.
Okay, so
right,
I liked All-Star Superman. I think it was a fun comic to read. More than anything, though, it has made me hate Superman more than anything.
Okay,
Superman is everything in Superman's world exists to make Superman more boring. Everything about him is boring. Everything he does is boring. Oh, I'm so perfect. I beat these 2 guys in the arm wrestling competition. I created life to fucking. I'm perfect in every way, in every situation, no matter what. I always did the right thing. I planned for myself to die and come back at just this moment, and he sucks so bad. He's so horrible. Jimmy Olsen, however, is awesome.
Sure.
Lex Luthor is the greatest ever. So, I don't think All-Star Superman was trying for this. But there are huge portions of that story in which Supes is telling Lex, hey man, do whatever, or save the world, or fine, you win, or just whatever, Lex. Mm-hmm. And Lex's response is continuously to go, fuck you, Superman.
Yes.
Fuck your shit,
yeah.
You alien piece of garbage. You ruined the whole Earth. And
you fucked with our destiny.
Time, I'm like, yeah, Lex, you tell him. Lex is so right. Lex is so right about Superman.
Okay, because the thing is that I'm like, there's a moment where you're like, for 2 things happen when you read this book, right? And it's like, you either get what they're trying to do or you don't, because it's quietly, right? Frank Whiteley. And it's like, the way you open it up and you have your, Doom's planet, baby savior, Earth, Smallville, like, we know, move on.
Everyone knows.
Right? And then you get right into it, and it's like, so there's this fucking space colony with Project, and like this fucker in a Technicolor dream coat, and just the weirdest batshit crazy shit.
Absolutely.
from the Golden Age era.
All things are canon.
Right? And they're not shying away from this weird old shit. Yeah. They're embracing it. and making it all about that.
I can appreciate that, and I did.
And people either reject that and go, "This is fucking stupid."
No, I love that.
Or you just buy it.
That was my favorite part.
Okay.
It's like when they did the old Bruce Timm's Batman show where they did the fucking flashback, the mix and match episode, where they had the old Joker and stuff like that. I love that shit.
Embracing all the stupid stuff.
But Clark, as a character, is so boring. He's so boring. Every person around him is more interesting than him. Crypto is more interesting. Ma and Pa Kent are so much more interesting. Jimmy Olsen and Lois and fucking Perry White and whoever the fuck Lombardo is. I don't know who that guy is.
Sure.
There are so much more interesting. Zabarro is more interesting than fucking Superman.
Sure. You know,
because Superman is perfect and normal and does no wrong and always knew everything to do in every situation. And I can't stand him. Every page that Lex was on
but you know what it is, though?
I'll read Lex Luthor comics now.
But you know what it is, though? Here's what it is. What's going on there? Oh, okay, you're good? Okay.
Yeah, I'm good.
What it is this, right? Superman in a room with any of those characters, you can have a scene. In a room by himself, you have no scene, right?
Yeah.
Chrono, in a room by himself, do you have a scene? No.
No.
Right? But Chrono, surrounded by the Chrono Trigger cast,
sure,
you get one of the greatest fucking adventures ever.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay.
It's that type of
but
story.
Chrono doesn't suck.
But
exactly.
Superman doesn't suck. But
he sucks!
But the ensemble is definitely what makes it.
They make it,
right? In the same sense that Superman is like the guy that's like, I can fucking solve the problems, but like the other characters that surround me are what make this a good story.
Then why is it when I played Chrono Trigger, I wasn't going, oh, I hate Chrono so much!
Because you
I do with Superman.
Because you didn't spend your childhood with everybody in the world going off about Chrono for every issue that would come out every week.
So terrible.
Your life was
the most interesting thing Superman ever did was die.
Your life has been filled with Superman. Your life has not been filled with Chrono. You have one memory of that from being a kid.
There's two interesting things.
But do you see the parallel?
Yeah, I see it. But there are two interesting things that Superman can do. Go evil, at which point he's always interesting when he's evil, because that character makes more sense than the character that he is. Or die.
Yeah.
Those are the only two interesting things that he can actually do.
What's the most interesting thing Chrono ever did?
Save the world from Lavos.
Die.
Yeah.
In a really awesome way.
No, I'd say the most interesting thing he did was like come back to life.
If Chrono Trigger came out, came out in the 40s,
and you've been hearing about all your friends, and there's been T-shirts of his Chrono Trigger fucking mop head on everyone's chest, and people are getting Chrono Trigger tattoos. You know what I mean? You see, it's that type of thing. It's not garbage, dude. It's a different kind of comic,
like Ryu in Breath of
Fire. But the writing is what makes it.
But the writing makes me hate Superman more. Every page is me hating Superman more because every page is him succeeding at something perfectly. Every single page. He didn't stub his fucking toe wrong unless it was on purpose when he was Clark Kent. Like, Superman's perfection is my problem.
Okay.
And that's why I think Lex is so amazing, because that's his problem too.
Like, Superman's flaw is that he's too perfect. That's not a trait that Chrono
obviously
it
came from a time when all that you needed was a man to be awesome to sell a comic book.
At the time,
that's why his character should have never made it past 1960.
And that's why I disagree, and I say I think that a good writer that takes that premise and makes it fun to read.
Is the guy who wrote All-Star Superman a good writer?
Yeah.
But here's the thing. There are scenes in All-Star Superman in which Superman is not on the page. Those are awesome.
Okay.
They're great.
I totally...
instant Superman walks into the thing, he's going to perfectly solve the problem.
I totally... I know. But the thing is that, I find that knowing that means that that's part of the story is kind of about that.
Superman's boring?
No, not Superman's boring, but he has a solution, but what else is happening here? You know, and
why is he even in the page? Shouldn't he just be off solving the problem while we look at interesting things?
Well, it's not always as clean cut as that, obviously, because you've got the time shit that gets involved at a point.
Yeah,
and it's
sure.
It's not just the saving of the day, because in many cases he saves the day in one punch, but it's the emotional aspect of what's happening, or the conversation that's happening.
Superman has the one emotional moment, and everything else is like, man, I'm the best.
Well,
I'm the best.
Well, look, I'm not going to tell you, hey, you should like a character you don't like.
Okay, let me ask you a question.
I do think that...
Did you ever know anyone in school that was perfect?
Well, no one's perfect.
No, but appeared perfect. The person who had perfect grades was the top. Was super popular.
I did.
Was super hot.
Awesome girl that gets perfect straight A's
and was like did everything correctly.
Yeah, sure.
How much did you hate them?
I didn't hate them.
Okay, see, this is where it comes from. I hated them. I wanted them to like fucking get blasted off to space every day.
Well, but it's
because the perfect person demeans your life by existing.
So you are Lex.
Yes.
Yeah. Totally.
But like, I also like.
Well, Lex is super successful. He's a billionaire.
But do you think then, if that perfect person didn't exist, that you would have been in that spot? Because Lex's whole deal is, if you weren't around, I would have been mankind's savior.
I wouldn't have.
It's coming from this fucked up.
No,
I mean?
It's not that you would be in that spot, but if the number one person could be at least somebody that had perceptible flaws, I could live with it.
Like, you think you're Krillin saying, fuck off, Goku!
No.
Get off our planet, alien!
It's my issue with people that don't have perceptible flaws. Mm-hmm. If you don't have any perceptible flaws and appear to be perfect, I don't trust you.
Yeah, but you can just make him shave with, like, kryptonite gel.
Sure.
So he does have flaws.
I know this is like Pat.
And
like Batman's screwed up and horrible. And he fucks up all the time.
To nail the perfection point home, the story starts with him getting even more invincible.
I know!
Sorry, Liam.
Like, I was so happy at the beginning of that story when it's like, oh, he's double perfect, and then you cut back to Lex going, gonna die in 3 weeks. High five, everyone! Right? I did it.
Better not shoot me with that kryptonite laser. That's dangerous. Oh wait, it did nothing.
Like, I haven't read All-Star Superman, but I've read a bunch of other just individual Superman comics, and the thing I really dislike about Superman is writers have such a challenge writing Superman because they have to think of a smart way to make a Superman comic interesting.
And if you're a good writer, you can.
I resent that because you could spend the same amount of time making an original story. More interesting.
So that's part of my bigger problem is that
I think that people
I wish Superman would just.
But you're not.
That's
those people.
That's an easy way out.
People are choosing.
I'm going to take my easy story.
Like,
I'd see a writer going, I want to be challenged by making an interesting story.
Every sequel to every game you like could have been an original game that was totally unique.
But those are games!
But the people creating them chose to work on it because they wanted to. So if people want to write
Wooly, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying I hate how, there's this character who's been around for 70 years who people keep trying to take cracks at.
And this is my longer running thing. With
if it was Beautiful Joe 2, I get you. And you're like, well, they could have done something different. And it's but they chose to do the second one. This is Superman 5000.
Of course.
Yeah, that's being generous. And that's my bigger thing with comics is I read the manga Full Metal Alchemist and I loved it. You know why? Because it started, it fucking went, and it ended. And it was over.
Yeah, but then it continues.
No.
Anyway, I just think
the franchise is not dead.
It
still continues on. No, I mean that there's still going to be adaptations and stuff and merch and things. It doesn't go away.
I just think
it's done though.
But there's no new Full Metal Alchemist stories.
Yeah, but there could be.
But there aren't. Is the point that he's getting at?
Could be.
But there are.
But there could be
play the games that have completely different stories.
Okay.
I mean, it's not a thing that just stops and ends. You could say that it does, and you're technically correct. But then you can spin off into a whole bunch of other.
Yes, we are technically correct.
Okay, I'm just saying that I feel that the writing about an invincible person, you're writing about a god, trying to tell a story about a god, is very difficult. And I think that, that's kind of what I appreciate in the good, well-written Superman stories. And in the bad ones, you get fucking horseshit, because it's just not, it's boring.
I'm gonna save the day, I'm gonna punch him really hard, I'm gonna punch him.
The people that are writing about him kind of don't realize that you need
they just don't
outside
succeed
elements.
For whatever reason.
Exactly. And the thing is that there's other comics out there where you have similarly omnipotent characters, but they're amazing comics. Do you know Sandman?
But it's I would rather read the exact same...
You know DC Sandman?
Really. Okay. I know the name,
Sandman is fucking legendary. He's nigh invincible in most of the issues you read with him, and it's it's still interesting because of what's happening outside of this character.
Yeah.
It's like the character is almost like a force as opposed to a person.
No, that does sound really interesting.
And the thing is that, and you have different types of stories that address characters in these ways where it's like, yeah, omnipotence is here, but then what?
No, that sounds really interesting.
So,
but, when did Sandman end?
Well...
Did it end?
Yes.
Then that's inherently more interesting.
And, All-Star Superman ended. Right?
No, this is an argument I've had. I tried to have with you, and you ignored everything that I said.
No.
Runs,
they are
not self-contained. Okay. Superman started that fucking 40 whatever, and it continues to exist to this day.
Is Spectacular Spider-Man the same as Amazing Spider-Man? Same as every other run of Spider-Man?
After a certain point, yes.
No,
Wooly's absolutely right here. Runs are all different, because I still think. And here's
what it comes down to: is that a writer and an artist sit down and create an arc or a closed book or whatever it is, and it begins and it ends.
Yeah, of course.
Right? And the Ultimates, as the Avengers, for example, began and ended and is a self-contained Avengers story that we go, hey, this is awesome, read this. Right? Those characters, because they're Marvel characters, will continue to show up in Marvel Comics in different things.
Yeah, of course.
But readers of comics know no one's acting as if it's a giant timeline that's going forward and it's not writers coming in. Well, no, but now you're doing your own thing. I'm telling you the reason why people like these things and go, oh, that's not shit, that's pretty good, is because writers and artists come together and make a contained thing. And it's a self-standing piece of work.
Writers and artists should make their own characters.
So,
they did. It's called Image. It was awful.
So we can't keep going with this because this is going to take too long.
What about JoJo? What about Berserk?
But
So does all fiction need to be exactly the same?
No.
That's not what he's saying.
No. Hold on.
Everything needs to start and end.
No, you just made up a narrative there.
No, it's not that. No. Here's the thing. Here's the problem, dude. Pat, you're totally right about the fact that it's like when you have a guided direction, you get something awesome with that. But unfortunately, the mainstream comic books industry in the West and the manga industry develop different paths. And I wish that you could have a dude sit down and just make a manga because you know that guy's fucking good and you can trust him. But unfortunately, the mangaka own their characters and their worlds and everything, whereas the characters are owned by the company. And it develops two different industries where the fiction is treated differently.
Yes, and
it's unfortunate.
And all I say is that the comic version of that I think is terrible.
Well, and but here's the thing: no one will ever tell you this character is awesome, implying every issue that has ever come out is a great read, and you need to sit and read them all.
Of course,
people always tell you go read this trade or this run or this contained story because that's where the quality comes out. If someone tells you James Bond is very cool, right? If someone recommends you a James Bond thing, are they telling you to literally go back and read every single James Bond book and watch every movie?
But I think the point
I think you split the movies and the books, but in that case, yes. I've seen almost every James Bond movie.
Are they telling you, hey, check out this one story, or check out this contained thing? That's what it kind of comes down to.
I think we've deviated a bit from the point, which is just Superman's too fucking perfect, and he's not... I don't enjoy reading him, and he's not like Chrono. And James Bond is more interesting than Superman because he fucks up and he's not perfect. And he gets caught in death traps with lasers coming to his...
And here's my wrench in the works is I'm going to say Superman is not a character, he's a genre. X-Men are a genre.
Mutants.
I think that's a reach.
No, but if you think about it, this is a category that has different entries of stories underneath it. You kind of see what I'm approaching here.
No, you're right, Wooly.
This character is just a label that has multiple stories underneath it.
You know what, Wooly? You're right. You can win an argument if you just change what words mean.
Okay. All right.
This character is a character.
It's clearly not, but I'm talking about the mentality. I'm talking about the mentality.
Did you do anything else in your week?
Dude, yeah. I'm just talking about the mentality and why
it's just you're fighting. Like, Pat says he doesn't like something,
which is okay.
Fighting him to make his opinion.
The first thing I said...
that's what Matt's doing.
No, the first thing I said...
Chrono thing.
Okay, no, Liam, come on. But just now I said I don't want to tell you, hey, don't have that opinion. That's not what I'm doing.
Yeah.
But I am saying that, the view on how comics go on forever and it's just bullshit and stuff is yeah, you can look at things and kind of go, JoJo is one guy and it's his team and they're going to have a consistency to it.
Yeah.
And sadly, Western comics just don't fucking have that. But...
Okay. That's all I wanted.
And that's it. Yeah, no.
That's all I wanted.
And that's
is that
correct.
you said, sadly, You can't get that in Western comics.
No, you're right. It sucks.
Okay.
And that's
because, that's all that's happening is that I take my opinion of this is the way to do it, and that's average, and the bad way to do it is awful. And you take it as like, oh, this is preferred, and this is unfortunate, but
it's shitty, but you pick and choose the good shit.
Yeah.
And then you get some good shit. You know, that's what comics have been since before.
Like, remember, you're talking to someone who can't watch Doctor Who.
Right.
Because the old episodes are gone.
If someone said to me, tomorrow X-Men will be finished, I'll be like, that sucks. Because it's such an analogy that's perfect for every generation of people being outcast. And I think it fucking is awful if someone goes, I wish it just ended.
You say that about a bunch of shit.
You don't think that new things could ever be as good as X-Men?
I think when the analogy is so perfect that outcasts are ostracized from society, I think it sucks if that ends. Because that's applicable in almost every generation.
If I had my world, if I had my absolute perfect world, I would like a world where...
are you
Professor X? I'd like a world.
I just think it's really short-sighted.
I would like a world.
You ask for stuff to stop all
these things have been around for.
What have I asked for? What?
Capcom.
Capcom what?
Period. You asked for them to shut and Sega
short-sighted
and like a bunch of
all
Sega
the characters
games
we've
in
been
the
talking
past.
about have
Don't do that to me. You've said this. Wait,
all the characters we have discussed today have existed before any of us were born.
I think that like in an ideal world,
how can it possibly be short-sighted?
The X-Men that we grew up with and knew and love would kind of hit a closed arc, and then new X-Men would come about in a sort of JoJo chapter 1 to 2 to 3.
That's the ultimate.
In a perfect world, it would be like this is the legacy. So like. If you see and when people think about like Wolverine or Phoenix or those moments, they think about like the things they did at that peak, and you don't sort of have the diluting of quality of shit writers, right? It would be nice to not have the pool corrupted in an ideal world, but knowing that doesn't happen, and knowing that
human nature,
and knowing that we still like comic books, well, to some degree. I mean, we're not as hardcore about it as we are about video games. I think it's like we're stuck with a world where we have to pick and choose what's good. And I think as long as we continue to do that, we can enjoy what we read. Wolverine Origin, you go read that, and then you read Wolverine the End, for example. And Wolverine the End is a piece of shit. It's fucking awful.
Wouldn't it be nice if every Wolverine story was good and all followed one centralized timeline?
It would.
Wouldn't that be nice?
It would.
I'm asking Matt specifically.
I guess, but when a character is created in like the 70s, it's not going to happen.
And that's unfortunate.
In America. I guess. Yeah. Because I'm trying to think of like another character that's like maybe something European, perhaps, where like
Tintin.
The character is
our knowledge doesn't hit Europe very well.
Yeah, but like a character handled by multiple people. Yeah. You know what I mean? But not within a Western comic book structure. Also, issues coming out as in like little issues as the equivalent of a giant tankobon, where you'd get like multiple things, whatever. Or,
sorry to take up so much time with this.
No, but I'm actually, it's an interesting discussion, I think, because it's totally true. But I just think, though, at the same time, if your conclusion becomes, therefore, fuck comics, that's crazy.
Well,
and that's silly.
The inability to get a complete story bothers me immensely.
I think if you treat, I think like the best way to enjoy it is to treat it like any other medium where like friends go, yo, check out this anime, yo, check out this movie, yo, check out this read.
But I just want to to Matt, your point, to Daredevil, for example, right? There's a bunch of stuff, like the opening of that Daredevil comic that I read, I liked it just fine, but referenced huge amounts of events of Daredevil getting turned into like a zombie the fucking evil ninja and all sorts of shit. Yeah.
What's a good movie or TV series where it's like you could tell people, check this thing out, but you have like a million asterisks to give them about
What do you mean?
Like, okay, get into Star Trek. But keep in mind
just watched original series TNG and Deep Space Nine and then stop.
Well, but you know what I mean. You kind of go like, okay, well then there's Voyager, and then there's Enterprise.
Well, see, no, with
the movies,
with TNG,
which movies are good?
With TNG, it's easy because you just stop. You watch them up until a date in time, and then you just stop.
And I thought about it. And I'm like, though Star Trek it's a bit like both. but it's closer to JoJo in that sense, and you can kind of go, well, just don't read that chapter, or whatever. But I can't really think of a perfect parallel with it.
And Gene Roddenberry died at some point.
Of course, because he wrote Earth Final Conflict, and that just took the life out of him.
War.
And unfortunately, Miss Roddenberry has also passed, which means that the amount of new Star Trek fiction that can be created is very limited, as the voice of the computer now has said everything that the computer is ever going to say.
But
so did you read Tech War?
I did not read Tech War.
All right, well, then what else did you do?
I played FF14. Nobody wants to hear about it, so I'm just going to skip over it.
Are you excited for Heaven's Word?
I'm extremely excited for Heaven's Word.
Next month.